Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome back to English in Advance. I am so happy you are here with me today. I am your host, Jessica, and I have a really special session planned for you. Today, we are not just going to study English, we are going to experience it. We are going to train our ears, and we are going to unlock a new level of understanding together. If you have ever felt that native speakers talk too fast or that words seem to blend together into one long sound, then this episode is exactly what you need. We are going to practice listening at a B1 to B2 intermediate level, which means I will speak clearly, but I will also use natural speed and connected speech to help you get used to how English really sounds in the wild. I want you to relax, take a deep breath, and maybe grab a notebook because we are about to dive deep into the world of listening comprehension. Remember, you can always pause, rewind, and listen again if you miss something. That is the beauty of learning with a podcast. Let's begin our journey today by talking about something we all experience but rarely talk about enough, and that is the art of listening itself, specifically the difference between hearing and listening. You might think they are the same thing, but there is a huge difference. Hearing is simply your ears picking up sound waves. It is passive. It happens automatically when a car drives by or when the wind blows. Listening, however, is active. It is a skill. It is a choice you make to focus your brain on the sounds and decode the meaning. When you are learning a new language, you are often stuck in the hearing phase where the sounds are just noise, but today we want to push you into the listening phase where the noise turns into meaningful communication. I want to share a little story with you to illustrate this, and as I tell this story, I want you to try to visualize the scene in your mind, create a mental movie. Because visualizing helps your brain connect the sounds to meanings. Imagine this scenario. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon, and I was sitting in a small, cozy coffee shop in London, just watching the world go by. There was a man sitting at the table next to me, and he was trying to order a coffee, but he looked very confused. The barista, who was a young woman with a very quick London accent, asked him, "Do you want milk in that?" Now, if you look at that sentence written down, it is, "Do you want milk in that?" But she didn't say it like that. She said, "Do you?" Blending the words together. The man looked at her and said, "I am sorry?" She repeated, a bit slower this time, "Milk in your coffee." And suddenly his face lit up with understanding. He wasn't deaf, he could hear the sound, but because the words were connected, his brain couldn't separate them fast enough. This is the exact skill we are going to practice today, the ability to hear "do you" and instantly know it means "do you." This brings us to our first big concept of the day, which is called connected speech. This is the secret weapon of listening comprehension. In simple English, we often teach words as individual units, like blocks. You learn the word what, you learn the word are, and you learn the word you. But in real life, fluent speakers do not speak in blocks. They speak in streams of sound. We link words together to make the sentence flow more smoothly. If you try to listen for every single individual word, you will fall behind and you will lose the meaning. You have to learn to listen for the groups of words, the chunks. Let's practice this together right now. I am going to say a sentence in two ways. First, I will say it slowly, word by word, like a robot. Then I will say it naturally, how I would say it to a friend. Ready? The sentence is, "What are you going to do this weekend?" A robot would say, "What are you going to Do this weekend? But I would never say it like that. I would say, what you gonna do this weekend? Did you hear that? What are you becomes whatcha. Going to becomes gonna. It sounds like one long word. Now I want you to practice with me. Do not worry about your accent. Do not worry about being perfect. Just try to mimic the flow. Repeat after me. What you gonna do? That's it. What you gonna do? When you practice saying it, your ears learn to recognize it. It is a loop. Speaking helps listening, and listening helps speaking. So next time you hear a native speaker say, whatcha, you won't be confused. You will know they are asking, what are you? This is incredibly important for the B1 to B2 level transition, because at this stage, you know a lot of vocabulary, but the problem isn't the words you know, it's the sounds you don't recognize. You might know the word going and you know the word to, but when you hear gonna, your brain doesn't find a match, and that causes a moment of panic. We want to eliminate that panic. Let's move on to a different aspect of listening, which is intonation. Intonation is the music of the language. It is the rise and fall of our voice. In English, intonation is crucial because it tells us the emotion or the intention behind the words. You can say the same sentence in 3 different ways and have 3 completely different meanings. Let me give you an example. Listen closely to my voice. If I say, really? With my voice going up at the end, it means I am surprised. I am asking a genuine question. Really? But if I say really, with my voice going down, flat and firm, it might mean I am disappointed or sarcastic, like I don't believe you. Really? And if I say it with a high fall, really, it means I am excited. This is why listening is so hard. You are not just decoding words, you are decoding feelings. A good listener pays attention to the music, not just the lyrics. Let's do a little exercise on intonation. I am going to say a sentence, and I want you to guess the situation based only on my tone. I won't give you the context, just the sentence. Here it is. I can't believe you did that. Did you hear my tone? It sounded disapproving, right? Like maybe someone made a mistake. Now listen to this one. I can't believe you did that. This time, my voice was high and happy, like someone did something amazing, maybe a surprise or a great favor. Same words, totally different message. When you are listening to podcasts or movies, try to close your eyes for a moment and just listen to the pitch. Is the voice going up? Is it going down? Is it flat? This will give you huge clues about what is happening, even if you miss a few vocabulary words. This is a great strategy for B1 learners, using context and intonation to fill in the gaps. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about a topic that I think is very interesting, and we will use this topic to practice some specific vocabulary and listening skills. The topic is the hidden life of trees. You might be thinking, Jessica, why are we talking about trees? Well, trees are fascinating, and recently scientists have discovered that trees can communicate with each other. This is a perfect topic for us because it involves some descriptive language and some cause and effect structures that are very common in B1 and B2 English. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this phenomenon, and as I talk, I want you to listen for specific details. Do not worry about understanding every single word. Focus on the main idea. Ready? Let's go. Scientists have found that trees are not just solitary plants standing alone in the forest. In fact, they are connected to each other through a complex underground network of roots and fungi. This network is often called the Wood Wide Web because it functions a bit like our internet. Through this network, trees can share resources. For example, a large older tree, often called a mother tree, can detect if a smaller seedling nearby is struggling to get enough sunlight or water. The mother tree can then send sugar and nutrients through the roots to help the seedling grow. It is almost like a parent feeding a child. But that is not all. Trees can also send warnings. If a tree is being attacked by bugs, it can release chemical signals into the air or through the roots to warn its neighbors. The other trees then receive the message and start producing chemicals to make their leaves taste bad, so the bugs won't eat them. It is a sophisticated system of communication and protection. That was a short little talk about trees. Let's break it down. I used some vocabulary that might be new for you, and I want to explain them now because these are great B2 level words. The first word is solitary. I said trees are not solitary. Solitary means alone or lonely. If you are a solitary person, you like to be by yourself. In the context of trees, it means they don't stand alone. They are connected. The next phrase was Wood Wide Web. This is a play on words. We all know the World Wide Web, which is the internet. Scientists cleverly changed world to wood because it's in the forest. Understanding plays on words is a very high-level skill, but it is very satisfying when you get the joke. I also use the word seedling. A seedling is a very young plant, a baby tree. It comes from the word seed. And I use the word struggling. To struggle means to have a hard time, to try very hard to do something but not succeeding. So a seedling struggling for sunlight means it is having a difficult time getting enough light. Now let's look at how I connected these ideas. I used phrases like, in fact, for example, and but that is not all. These are signposts. When you are listening, you want to hunt for these signposts. When you hear, in fact, you know the speaker is going to emphasize a point or correct a misconception. When you hear, for example, you know a specific instance is coming, which usually makes the abstract idea easier to understand. When you hear, but that is not all, you know there is more information coming, a new layer to the story. Recognizing these signposts helps you follow the logic of the conversation. If you miss the details, these signposts help you stay on track. Let's do a quick comprehension check. Do not worry, this is not a test, just a check. I want to see if you caught the main ideas from the story. I asked you to listen for why the large tree helps the small tree. Do you remember? The large tree helps the small tree because the small tree is struggling. And how does the tree warn others about bugs? It uses chemical signals. If you got those answers, fantastic. Your listening skills are sharp. If you miss them, that is totally okay. You can go back and listen to that section again. This is the process of learning. You listen, you check, you re-listen. That cycle is where the magic happens. Now let's talk about something that confuses many English learners, and that is the use of phrasal verbs in spoken English. Phrasal verbs are those short phrases that combine a verb with a preposition, like give up or look after. They are everywhere in spoken English. You simply cannot avoid them. In the B1 to B2 transition, phrasal verbs become very important. The problem is that they often have meanings that are not logical. For example, to run out of something. If you run out of milk, it doesn't mean you are running physically outside with the milk. It means you have no milk left. The meaning is idiomatic. When you are listening, your brain might try to translate literally, which leads to confusion. You have to train your brain to treat the phrasal verb as a single vocabulary item. Let's practice a few common ones in context. I am going to use the story of the trees again, but this time I will rewrite it using phrasal verbs. Listen for how the meaning stays the same, but the words change. In the first story, I said the tree detects if a seedling is struggling. I could also say the tree picks up on the problem. To pick up on means to notice or understand something that is not obvious. I also said the tree produces chemicals. Another way to say that is the tree gives off chemicals. To give off means to emit or produce a smell, light, or substance. And when the bugs attack, the tree doesn't just die, it fights back. We could say the tree holds off the attack, meaning it resists or stops the attack. So we have pick up on, give off, and holds off. See how natural that sounds? The tree picks up on the danger and gives off a warning to hold off the attack. That is very advanced English. I want you to try using these in your own head. Imagine a situation in your life. Have you ever picked up on a hint from a friend? Maybe they were sad but didn't say it and you picked up on it. Has your phone ever given off a strange smell? Probably not. Hopefully not. Or maybe a fire gave off a lot of smoke. Connecting these phrases to your own life helps you remember them. When you are listening to a podcast or watching TV, try to spot these phrasal verbs. They are often spoken quickly. Pick up on might sound like pick up on. It all blends together. But now that you know what to listen for, your brain will start to catch them. Let's move on to a different type of listening challenge, which is listening for numbers and specific data. This is often very difficult because numbers do not have context clues like adjectives or verbs do. A number is just a number. However, the way we say numbers in English has some specific rules. For example, years. We don't say 1,999. We say 1999. We split the year into two parts, but for the year 2000, we say 2000. And for 2005, we might say 2005 or 2005. It can be confusing. Let's practice a little bit with numbers related to our tree topic. I am going to give you some facts, and I want you to just let the numbers flow into your ears. Researchers have found that some trees can live for a very long time. For example, the Great Basin bristlecone pine is one of the oldest trees in the world. One specific tree, named Methuselah, is over 4,850 years old. That is incredible. It was a seedling before the pyramids of Egypt were even built. And how about height? The tallest trees in the world are the coast redwoods in California. The tallest one standing is named Hyperion, and it is over 115 meters tall. That is higher than the Statue of Liberty. When you hear a number like 4,850, notice how I stress the big numbers. 4,850. We usually stress the hundreds and the thousands. Listening for that stress pattern helps you catch the number even if you miss the small words. Another tricky area is prices. In English, we say the dollars first, then the cents. If something costs $12.50, we say $12.50, or sometimes just $12.50. Notice we usually don't say the currency word if it is obvious. If you are in a shop and they say that's $12.50, you know they mean dollars or pounds or euros, not 12 hours or 12 kilograms. Context is key. Let's imagine you are buying a ticket to visit a national park to see these amazing trees. The entrance fee might be $25. The ranger might say, "That'll be 25 even." Even means no cents, just the whole number. These little additions like even or flat are the details that make listening challenging but rewarding. Now, I want to talk to you about something called shadowing. This is a technique that many polyglots and language learners use to improve their listening and speaking simultaneously. The idea is simple, but it requires concentration. You listen to a native speaker and you repeat what they say almost immediately, like a shadow following them. You do not pause the audio. You listen and speak at the same time. This forces your brain to process the sounds faster and mimic the rhythm. I am going to guide you through a mini shadowing exercise right now. I will say a sentence very naturally with all the connected speech and intonation. I want you to try to speak along with me or just a split second behind me. Do not think about the spelling. Just think about the sound. Here is the sentence. I'm going to the store to get some milk. I will say it at normal speed. I'm going to the store to get some milk. Did you hear how to the sounds like to the and get some sounds like get some? Now, you try to shadow me. I will say it again, and you speak along. I'm going to the store to get some milk. Keep going. I'm going to the store to get some milk. One more time, faster. I'm going to the store to get some milk. It feels a bit strange at first, like you are singing a song you don't quite know yet. But trust me, doing this for just 5 or 10 minutes a day will rewire your brain to hear English differently. You will stop looking for individual words and start hearing the chunks of sound. Let's discuss the importance of podcasts for learning English, specifically why listening to podcasts like this one is different from watching TV or movies. When you watch a movie, you have visual cues. You can see the actor's face, the setting, the action. If you don't understand a word, you can guess based on what is happening on screen. This is helpful, but it can also be a crutch. You might think your listening is better than it actually is because you are relying on your eyes. With a podcast, it is pure audio. You have to rely 100% on your ears. This is harder, but it is also much more effective for training. It is like lifting a heavier weight at the gym. It builds muscle faster. That is why I recommend listening to podcasts when you are doing other things, like walking, driving, or cleaning. It forces your brain to create meaning from sound alone. However, passive listening isn't enough. You need active listening. Passive listening is having the podcast on in the background while you are totally focused on something else. It is good for getting used to the rhythm of the language, but you won't learn much vocabulary. Active listening is what we are doing right now. I am explaining things. I am asking you to visualize. I am asking you to repeat. To improve your B1 to B2 level, you need a mix of both. You need the background noise to make the sounds familiar, and you need the focused study to understand the details. I suggest dedicating at least 15 minutes a day to active listening. Find a podcast episode that is interesting to you, listen to a short segment, maybe 2 minutes, and then stop. Ask yourself, what was that about? Summarize it out loud to yourself or to a friend. Then listen again and check for details. Let's try that now. I am going to tell you a very short story about a travel experience. I want you to listen actively. Then I will ask you to summarize it. Here is the story. Last summer, my friend Mark decided to go on a hiking trip in the mountains. He packed his backpack with all the essentials: a map, a compass, water, and some sandwiches. He started his hike early in the morning and the weather was perfect. However, around noon, the sky suddenly turned dark and a heavy storm rolled in. Mark couldn't see the trail anymore and he started to feel anxious. He remembered he had his compass and he used it to find his way back to the main road. By the time he got back to his car, he was soaking wet, but he was safe. He learned a valuable lesson that day. Always check the weather forecast before you go hiking. Okay, that was the story. Now, pause for a moment. Can you summarize what happened? Who was the main character? Mark. Where did he go? Hiking in the mountains. What happened? A storm came. How did he solve the problem? He used a compass. If you were able to answer those questions in your head, you have successfully comprehended the story. This is the core of B1 listening. You don't need to remember the brand of his backpack or exactly what kind of sandwiches he had. You need the main events. That is the difference between detail listening and gist listening. Gist listening is understanding the general idea. Detail listening is getting the small facts. Both are important, but gist listening is usually more important for communication. If you understand the gist, you can participate in the conversation. Let's look at some of the vocabulary from the travel story that helps create a picture. I use the word essentials. Essentials are things you absolutely need. Food, water, shelter, these are essentials. I also use the phrase rolled in to describe the storm. The storm rolled in. This gives the image of the clouds moving slowly and heavily, like a wheel rolling. It is a very visual phrase. And I said he was soaking wet. We often use soaking to emphasize that something is very wet, not just a little damp. It is a strong collocation. A collocation is a natural combination of words. We say soaking wet. We don't usually say dripping wet or bathing wet. Learning these collocations will make your English sound much more natural. Now I want to talk about listening speed. Many of my students ask me, Jessica, how can I understand fast speech? The answer is that you need to listen to fast speech, but you need to do it in a smart way. If you listen to a rocket scientist explaining quantum physics at full speed, you will understand nothing and you will be frustrated. You need to find content that is slightly above your current level. This is called comprehensible input. It means you understand about 70% to 80% of what you hear, and the other 20% is new, but you can guess it from the context. That is the sweet spot for learning. If it is too easy, you aren't learning. If it is too hard, you are just hearing noise. This podcast, English in Advance, is designed to be that sweet spot for B1 and B2 learners. I choose topics that are interesting but not too academic. I use vocabulary that is useful and common, and I explain the difficult parts. But you should also challenge yourself. Try listening to a podcast meant for native speakers, maybe about a topic you already know a lot about. For example, if you love cooking, listen to a cooking podcast in English. You already know the vocabulary like boil, fry, chop, ingredients, so your brain can relax a bit and focus on the English. This gives you confidence. Confidence is a huge part of listening. If you panic, your brain shuts down. If you are confident, your brain stays open and ready to learn. I want to touch on the subject of different accents. Up until now, you have only heard my voice, which is an American accent, but English is a global language. There are British accents, Australian accents, Irish accents, South African accents, and many more. To be a truly advanced listener, you need to expose yourself to different voices. The grammar is the same, and most of the vocabulary is the same, but the pronunciation and the intonation can be quite different. For example, in American English, we say water with a distinct T sound, or sometimes a soft D sound, waiter. In British English, they often say water with a glottal stop, where the T is barely pronounced, wa-air. Both are correct. When you are practicing, try to listen to different speakers. YouTube is a great resource for this. You can find videos of people from all over the world sharing their stories. Don't get discouraged if you find a Scottish accent difficult at first. Even native speakers from other countries sometimes struggle with strong, regional accents. Let's go back to some practical grammar that often gets lost in listening. I want to focus on the difference between present perfect and past simple. This is a classic B1 hurdle. When we tell a story, we often switch between these tenses. Listen to this sentence. I have visited Paris, but I went there a long time ago. The first part, I have visited, connects the past to the present. It is part of my life experience. The second part, I went, is a completed action in the past time. When you are listening, hear the word have or has as a signal that the speaker is talking about experience or a current state. Hear the ed ending or the irregular past verb, like went, as a signal of a finished time. In spoken English, the have often disappears. I visited. I've been. You might just hear "I've visited." You have to train your ear to catch that tiny V sound to know it is present perfect. Let's practice this with a story about travel experiences, which is perfect for present perfect. Listen for the hidden have. Have you ever tried sushi? In fast speech, you ever tried sushi? Or have you ever seen the ocean? Listen, you ever seen the ocean? Now, compare that to the past. Did you see the ocean last year? Did you often becomes did ya or gee? Ja see the ocean? The sound is totally different. Have you, experience, versus did you, specific past time. This distinction is vital for understanding the timeline of a conversation. If you miss the auxiliary verb, you might misunderstand if something happened yesterday or if it is a general fact. We've covered a lot of ground so far, but I want to shift our focus to a new topic that is perfect for B1 to B2 learners, and that is the topic of habits and routines. This is a great topic because it allows us to use the present simple tense a lot, which is the most common tense in English, but it also allows us to talk about frequency and time. We all have habits, right? Some are good, like drinking water in the morning, and some are maybe not so good, like checking your phone the moment you wake up. When we talk about habits in English, we often use specific words called frequency adverbs. Words like always, usually, often, sometimes, rarely, and never. Listening for these words is crucial because they tell you how often something happens. If I say, I always drink coffee in the morning, that is a very strong statement. It happens 100% of the time. But if I say, I rarely drink coffee, that means almost never. The placement of these words is also interesting. We usually put them before the main verb. I often go to the gym, but we put them after the verb to be. She is always late. Hearing that small difference helps you understand the structure of the sentence. Let's listen to a short story about a daily routine, and I want you to try to catch the frequency adverbs. I will speak at a natural pace. Ready? Here we go. My neighbor, Mr. Thompson, is a man of very strict habits. He wakes up at exactly 6 o'clock every single day. He never uses an alarm clock. He just wakes up naturally. Then he usually goes for a run in the park, regardless of the weather. He often says that fresh air is the best medicine. After his run, he almost always makes a big breakfast, usually eggs and toast. However, he rarely drinks coffee. He prefers tea. On weekends, his routine changes a bit. He sometimes sleeps in until 7, and he never goes for a run on Sundays. Instead, he reads the newspaper. It is a simple life, but he loves it. That was a nice description of a routine life. Did you catch the adverbs? He never uses an alarm clock. He usually goes for a run. He rarely drinks coffee. These words give us a clear picture of his personality. He sounds very disciplined. Now, I want to talk about the pronunciation of these adverbs. Sometimes, when we speak quickly, the word usually can be tricky. We don't say usually with 4 distinct syllables. We often say usually. It sounds almost like one smooth sound. Usually. The S sound turns into a zhu sound, like the sound in the word measure or vision. This is a very common sound change in English. If you are waiting to hear a sharp S sound, you might miss the word entirely. So practice saying it with me. Usually. I usually go home at 5. Get your mouth used to that movement. Speaking of habits, let's talk about how we describe changes in our habits. This is a very B2 level skill. We often use the phrase used to. This is a big milestone in English learning. Used to describes a habit that happened in the past but does not happen anymore. For example, I used to smoke, but I quit. This means I smoked in the past, but now I don't. The listening challenge here is the pronunciation. We pronounce used to as used to. We drop the D sound and the to becomes a quick to. It sounds like used to. We never pronounce the D. If you hear used to with a clear D, it means utilized for. Like, this computer is used to store data. But for habits, it is always used to. Listen to the difference. I used to live in New York. This pen is used to write. The first one is a past habit. The second one is a function. You have to listen to the context to know which one it is. Let's practice used to with a little listening quiz. I will say a sentence, and I want you to decide if I am talking about a past habit, something I don't do now, or a function, what something is for. Here's the first one. This key is used to open the back door. That was a function. The key is utilized for that purpose. Here's the second one. Grandpa used to tell us stories before bed. That is a past habit. He told stories in the past, probably when the speaker was a child. It sounds almost the same, so you have to pay attention to the grammar around it. If you hear is used to, it is likely a function. If you hear a subject like I, she, or grandpa followed by used to, it is a past habit. This distinction is subtle but essential for accurate listening comprehension. Now, I want to introduce a concept called word stress. This is different from sentence stress. Word stress is about which syllable in a word is louder and longer. In English, every multi-syllable word has a stressed syllable. If you stress the wrong syllable, it can be very hard for a native speaker to understand you, and vice versa. If you don't know where the stress is, you might not recognize the word when you hear it. Let's take the word record. If I say record with the stress on the first part, it is a noun. It is a thing, like a vinyl record or a database entry. But if I say record with the stress on the second part, It is a verb. It is an action, like, I want to record a video. This pattern is very common in English. Nouns usually have the stress on the first syllable and verbs on the second. Let's go through a few examples. Present. As a noun, a gift, it is present. As a verb, to show or give, it is present. Import. The noun, a product brought into a country, is import. The verb to bring something in is import. When you are listening, try to tune your ears into that rhythm. Boom day, noun day boom. Verb. It is like a drum beat. Let me tell you a short story using both forms of these words and see if you can hear the shift. I wanted to record a song, so I bought a new recorder. I tried to present my idea to the boss, but he didn't like the present I gave him. We need to import more goods, but the import tax is too high. Hearing the stress pattern unlocks the meaning. It is a roadmap for your ears. Let's move on to something a bit more fun, which is idioms. Idioms are phrases where the meaning cannot be understood from the individual words. For example, it's raining cats and dogs. It doesn't mean animals are falling from the sky. It means it is raining very hard. In the B1 to B2 level, you start encountering more idioms in podcasts and movies. They can be very frustrating because you can't translate them literally. However, idioms are the spice of the language. They make you sound more fluent and they help you understand the culture. Today, let's focus on idioms related to work and effort, since we are talking about training your English. Imagine you are working on a big project. You might say you are burning the candle at both ends. This means you are working very hard, staying up late and getting up early, exhausting yourself. Or you might say you have to burn the midnight oil. This also means working late into the night. Notice the common word burn in both. It gives the idea of using up energy. If I tell you a story and say, Sarah was burning the candle at both ends to finish her thesis, you now know Sarah is tired and working hard. You don't need to visualize candles. You visualize Sarah at her desk, looking tired. When you hear an idiom, don't stop to analyze every word. Try to get the feeling from the context. Is it positive? Is it negative? Usually, the words around the idiom will give you a clue. Here is another common one. Hit the nail on the head. This sounds violent, but it is actually very positive. It means you are exactly right about something. If we are discussing a problem and you suggest a solution that solves it perfectly, I would say, you hit the nail on the head. Listen for this in conversations. If someone says it to you, you should feel good. You are correct. Let's try a scenario. Two friends are talking. One says, I think the reason the car won't start is because the battery is dead. The other says, I think you hit the nail on the head. The lights were left on all night. See how the second sentence confirms the first? You hit the nail on the head means you are correct. Now, let's practice a technique called listening for inference. This is a high-level skill. Sometimes speakers do not say exactly what they mean. They imply it. You have to read between the lines. This is common in social situations where people are trying to be polite. For example, if someone asks you, do you want to go to the cinema? And you say, I am really tired. You didn't say no, but the implication is no. You are too tired to go. In a podcast or a dialogue, you might hear this kind of indirect language. Let's listen to a short conversation. I want you to tell me what the second person implies. Person A, do you want to grab some lunch? Person B, I have a huge report due in an hour. Person A, oh, okay, maybe later. So what did person B imply? They didn't say, "No, I can't." They stated a fact. They have a report due. The implication is that they are too busy to eat. Understanding this helps you navigate social situations in English. If you only listen for the literal words, yes or no, you will miss a lot of the communication. When you are listening to this podcast, if I say, "It is getting a bit late," I am implying that we might need to wrap up soon, or you might need to go to bed. I am not just telling you the time, I am suggesting an action. I want to circle back to the idea of vocabulary expansion through listening. When you hear a new word, do not panic. Do not stop the audio immediately. Try to guess the meaning from the context. This is a game changer. If you stop every time you hear a new word, you break the flow of understanding. Let's try it. I am going to use a word that you might not know, or that is a bit advanced, ubiquitous. Listen to the sentence. Smartphones have become ubiquitous in modern society. You see them everywhere, in every hand, on every table. Now, I gave you a big clue. You see them everywhere. So ubiquitous must mean seemingly everywhere, or very common. By listening to the rest of the sentence, you could define the word without a dictionary. This is a skill you need to practice consciously. Next time you are watching a movie and hear a strange word, wait a few seconds. Listen to the next sentence. Does the speaker explain it? Does the situation explain it? Train your brain to be a detective, looking for clues, not just a student looking for definitions. Let's talk about the schwa sound. This is the most important sound in the English language, and many learners have never heard of it. The schwa is a weak sound, like a grunt. It sounds like It is represented by the symbol orcrist in dictionaries. The crazy thing about the schwa is that almost any vowel can become a schwa in an unstressed syllable. Take the word banana. We don't say banana, we say bunan-a. The first and last ah sounds turn into a lazy The word today is not today, it is today. The word computer is computu. The last syllable is a schwa. When you are listening, you need to ignore these weak sounds. Don't try to identify the vowel, just know it is a filler sound. The important information is on the stressed syllable. If you try to listen for clear vowels in every syllable, you will exhaust yourself. Let the schwas flow over you and focus on the stressed peaks of the words. Let's do a quick check on some confusing words that sound similar. These are called minimal pairs. For example, ship and sheep, or bed and bad. In isolation, these are easy, but in a sentence, they can be tricky. Listen to this sentence. I saw a big ship in the harbor. Now, if I said, I saw a big sheep in the harbor, that would be strange. A sheep is an animal. The context tells you which word it is. You wouldn't see a farm animal in a harbor usually. The vowel sound in ship is short and sharp. Ship. The vowel in sheep is long and stretched. Sheep. The length of the sound is the key. If I say, I need to sleep, it is long. I need a sheet of paper. Long. Context is your best friend here. If you hear a word that sounds wrong, check the context. Does a ship make sense here? Does a sheep make sense? Your brain is actually very good at making these calculations quickly. You just have to trust it. Let's try a more advanced listening exercise involving directions. This is a practical skill. Often when someone gives directions, they speak quickly because they know the way well. You have to catch the prepositions. Prepositions of place are small words, but they change everything. Turn left, go past, go through, across from. Let's imagine you are in a new city. Listen to these directions and try to visualize the path. Okay, go straight down this street until you reach the traffic lights. Don't turn left, turn right at the lights. Then go past the bank and the post office. You will see a park on your left. Walk through the park and the museum is right across from the exit on the other side. Did you follow that? The key markers were traffic lights, bank, post office, park, and museum. The directional words were straight, right, past, through, across from. If you miss the preposition past, you might think the destination is the bank. Go past means keep going, the bank is behind you now. Across from means facing it, opposite it. Listening to directions is a great way to practice because it is purely functional. You can practice this by listening to GPS navigation systems in English if you have that option in your car or phone. Now I want to touch on the verb forms of have. We often use have as a main verb, like I have a car. But in B2 listening, you will hear have as an auxiliary verb in perfect tenses, and it often contracts. I have been becomes I've been. He is gone becomes he's gone. Sometimes he's can mean he is or he has. How do you know the difference? You have to look at the next word. If he's is followed by a verb ending in ing, a participle, it usually means he is. For example, he's running. He is running. If he's is followed by a past participle, like gone or finished, it means he has. He's gone home. He has gone home. This is a tiny detail that happens in a split second. He's finished. He has finished. He's tired. He is tired. Here, tired is an adjective, not a verb action. So context and grammar knowledge work together. Your ears need to hear he's and instantly calculate what comes next. It sounds difficult, but with practice, it becomes automatic. Let's tell a story using these contracted forms to get your ear used to them. Sarah's been working hard lately. She's tired. She's already finished 3 projects this month. She's hoping to take a break soon. Did you hear them? Sarah has been. She's tired. She is. She's already finished. She has. She's hoping. She is. The contractions sound exactly the same. She's. The grammar tells you the meaning. This is why listening and grammar are inseparable. You cannot be a good listener without understanding the underlying structure of the sentences. I want to talk briefly about how to handle it when you truly don't understand. In a real conversation, you cannot just sit there silently. You need phrases to ask for clarification. This is a listening strategy called repair strategies. Phrases like, "Could you say that again, please?" Or, "What do you mean by?" Or, "Could you speak a little slower?" These are vital tools for your toolbox. Practicing these phrases makes you a confident communicator. A good listener isn't someone who understands 100% of everything. A good listener is someone who knows how to fix the conversation when it breaks down. Don't be afraid to interrupt politely. "Sorry, I didn't catch that last part." That is a perfectly normal thing to say. Native speakers do it all the time, especially on bad phone connections. As we continue, I want to focus on something that confuses almost every learner at the B1 and B2 level, and that is the subtle art of conditional sentences. Think about how often we talk about possibilities in life. We are always imagining different scenarios, thinking about what might happen or what we would do if something else occurred. This is the heart of conditionals. In English, we structure these thoughts with the word if, but the way we pronounce if sentences in natural speech is often very different from what you see in a textbook. Let's start with the first conditional, which we use for real possibilities. Imagine I am planning a picnic. I might say, "If it rains, we will cancel the picnic." That is a real possibility. In writing, you see, "If it rains, then we will cancel." But in spoken English, listen to how it changes. If it rains, we'll cancel the picnic. The "we will" becomes "will," a tiny sound. And often we reduce "if it" to "eff it." "If it rains, we'll cancel." If you are waiting to hear a clear "if," you might miss it. You have to listen for the context of a future plan. Now let's move to the second conditional. This is the dreamer's territory. We use this for imaginary or unlikely situations. The structure involves the past tense, which is confusing, but the meaning is about the present or future. For example, if I won the lottery, I would travel the world. Notice I said won, past tense, but I mean if it happened now. The listening challenge here is the contraction of would. I would travel becomes I'd travel. I'd is a very small sound, just ID. It can easily get lost. Let me tell you a little story using this structure so you can hear it in context. Listen for the I'd sound. Imagine a friend asks me, "What would you do if you could live anywhere in the world?" This is a hypothetical question. I might answer, "If I could live anywhere, I'd choose a small cottage by the sea. I'd wake up every morning to the sound of waves, and I'd spend my days writing books. I wouldn't miss the city at all." Did you hear those short sounds? I'd choose, I'd wake up, I'd spend, I wouldn't. They sound like contractions, quick little beats in the sentence. If you miss them, you might miss the fact that this is all a dream, not reality. Being able to distinguish between I do and I'd do is a major milestone in listening comprehension. It changes the meaning from a habit to a fantasy. This brings us to a very interesting point about listening for discourse markers. These are words and phrases that speakers use to organize their thoughts or signal a change in direction. You might hear words like however, although, on the other hand, or actually. These are signposts. When you hear actually, it usually means the speaker is going to correct a misunderstanding or introduce a surprising fact. For example, if I say, "I thought the museum was open today, but actually it's closed on Mondays." Or the word actually prepares your brain for the correction. If you miss that word, you might get confused about whether the museum is open or closed. Native speakers use these markers constantly. By the way, signals a new topic. Anyway, signals a return to a previous topic. For instance, signals an example. Tuning your ears to these markers helps you follow the flow of a conversation, even if you miss a few vocabulary words. Let's try a little exercise involving these markers. I am going to tell you about my weekend, but I am going to wander off topic a bit. Try to catch the marker that tells you I am coming back to the main story. So I went to the supermarket yesterday to buy some apples. They had a great sale on apples, by the way, 50% off. Anyway, as I was saying, I was picking out some apples when I ran into my old high school teacher. Did you catch it? I introduced a side note about the price, and then I used anyway to return to the main story of meeting the teacher. These little navigational words are the glue that holds a conversation together. Without them, stories would be chaotic and hard to follow. Now I want to switch gears and talk about a specific vowel sound that is a nightmare for many learners, and that is the difference between the sounds in sit and seat, or live and leave. This is called vowel length. In English, the length of the vowel can completely change the meaning of the word. If you say, I live here, with a short vowel, it means your home is here. If you say, I leave here, with a long vowel, it means you are departing. In fast speech, this difference is tiny. Live is quick, leave is longer, and often ends with a slightly different mouth shape. Let's put these in sentences. Listen to the context to help you. Please sit down. You wouldn't say, please seat down. Seat is a noun. Sit is a verb action. But what about the seat is comfortable? Here, seat is the noun. You have to rely on the grammar and the surrounding words to help your ears make the right choice. This is why context is king. Never listen to a word in isolation if you can avoid it. Always try to hear the whole package. Let's explore the concept of tags in conversation. Tag questions are those little additions at the end of a sentence, like, isn't it, or don't you? We use them to check information or to ask for agreement. The intonation of the tag is very important. If the voice goes up at the end, it is a real question. It's a beautiful day, isn't it? Voice goes up. I am asking for your opinion. If the voice goes down, I am just making conversation, expecting you to agree. It's cold today, isn't it? Voice goes down. This is small talk. When you are listening to a dialogue, pay attention to the end of the sentences. Are the speakers unsure? Or are they bonding over shared facts? Tag questions are very common in British English, but they are used everywhere. They can be hard to hear because they are muttered quickly. You're coming, aren't you? Sounds like Arentia. The T and Y blend together to make a ch sound. Arentia. Can't you becomes can'tya. This is a feature called coalescence. It happens when a T or D sound meets a Y sound. Did you eat? Did ya eat? Or did ya? Don't you like it? Don't ya like it? Recognizing this ch sound will help you decode these common questions. Now, I want to tell you a story that incorporates a lot of what we have discussed today. It is a story about a misunderstanding, which happens all too often when learning a language. As you listen, try to identify the connected speech, the contractions, and the vocabulary we have learned. Imagine a busy train station. A tourist approaches a local to ask for directions. The tourist speaks very carefully, word by word. Excuse me. Where is the platform for the train to London? The local, who is in a rush, answers naturally. You're standing on it, mate. The train's just pulled in. You'd better hurry. The tourist looks confused. I am standing on what? The local realizes the tourist didn't understand the on it part. On it sounds like on knit. It blends together. So the local repeats, the platform is right here, under your feet. The tourist finally understands. Oh, thank you. This short interaction highlights the gap between classroom English and street English. In class, we say, you are standing on it. On the street, we say, you're standin' on it. 3 words become one chunk. To bridge this gap, you need to practice lexical chunks. A lexical chunk is a group of words that naturally go together. Instead of learning one word at a time, learn the chunk. For example, at the moment. Don't just learn moment. Learn the phrase at the moment. When you hear at the moment, your brain recognizes the whole pattern instantly. In the morning, at night. By the way, as a matter of fact. When you recognize chunks, you don't have to process every single preposition and article. Your brain has free space to focus on the new information. This is the secret to fast processing. Let's talk about listening for emotions through word choice. This is a subtle skill for B2 learners. We can express the same idea with different emotional weights. For instance, if someone is angry, they might use stronger adjectives. Instead of saying, "I am not happy with this," they might say, "I am furious." Instead of, "It is raining hard," they might say, "It is pouring buckets." Listening for these intensified words tells you the speaker's state of mind. If I tell you a story and say, "My boss was a bit annoyed," that is mild. Maybe she just sighed. But if I say, "My boss was absolutely livid," that means she was screaming. The word livid is strong. The phrase absolutely livid is even stronger. When you are listening to podcasts or movies, try to keep a mental note of the emotional vocabulary. Is this positive or negative? Is it mild or extreme? This helps you understand the story much better than just knowing the plot. I also want to discuss the verb get. This is probably the most versatile verb in the English language. We use it for everything. In a listening context, get can be confusing because it has so many meanings. I got a letter means I received. I got angry means I became. I get it means I understand. I have to get to the airport means I have to arrive. Get out of here means leave. In spoken English, we use get much more than formal verbs like receive, become, or arrive. Let's listen to a story full of gets. I woke up late and realized I had to get ready fast. I didn't get a chance to eat breakfast. I ran to the bus stop but didn't get there in time. I was getting really stressed. Finally, I got a taxi and got to work just in time. My boss asked if I got the email she sent. I told her I hadn't checked yet, but I would get right on it. That was a lot of gets. Did you catch the different meanings? Get ready, prepare, get a chance, have an opportunity, get there, arrive, getting stressed, becoming, get a taxi, obtain, find, get to work, arrive, get the email, receive, get right on it, start doing it. This is why get is so important. It does all the heavy lifting in casual conversation. If you see it in a dictionary, the definition is simple, but in real life, it changes constantly. The best way to learn it is to hear it in context over and over again. Don't memorize a list of meanings. Just listen to stories and notice how get is used. Your brain will start to intuit the meaning based on the situation. Let's move on to a topic that is very useful for B2 learners, which is relative clauses. These are parts of a sentence that give more information about a noun. They often start with who, which, or that. In spoken English, these relative pronouns often disappear. This is called a zero relative pronoun. For example, in writing, you might see, "The book that I bought is interesting." In speaking, we say, "The book I bought is interesting." We skip that, or the person who called me yesterday becomes, "The person called me yesterday." If you are waiting for the word who or that, you might think the sentence is missing a subject, but your brain needs to jump over that gap. The book, gap I bought. You have to connect the book to I bought. This is a very common feature of natural speed. Listen to this sentence. The coffee I drank this morning was too hot. I didn't say the coffee that I drank. I just said the coffee I drank. It flows faster. When you are listening, don't expect perfect grammatical sentences. Expect shortcuts. We have spent a lot of time today focusing on decoding and analyzing, but I want to end this session with a reminder about the joy of listening. Sometimes we get so focused on catching every word that we forget to enjoy the content. The best way to improve is to listen to things you genuinely enjoy. Do you like sports? Listen to English sports commentary. Do you like cooking? Watch a cooking show. Do you like mysteries? Find a detective podcast. When you are interested in the content, your motivation is higher and your brain works harder to understand. It stops feeling like study and starts feeling like entertainment. That is the ultimate goal. We want English to be a tool for your happiness in learning, not just a subject in school. As we wind down this segment, I want to leave you with a thought about active versus passive vocabulary. Your passive vocabulary is the words you understand when you hear them. Your active vocabulary is the words you can use when you speak. Listening builds your passive vocabulary massively. You might hear a word like reluctant in this podcast. You understand it means unwilling, but you might not use it in your own speech yet. That is okay. Passive vocabulary is the foundation. Eventually, through enough listening, that passive word becomes active. You will be in a conversation and suddenly, reluctant will pop into your head. It is a magical moment. So do not worry if you can't use everything you hear immediately. Your brain is storing it all away for later. We have covered so much ground today. We talked about connected speech, intonation, the secret life of trees, phrasal verbs, numbers, shadowing, active listening, and grammar in context. We looked at idioms, word stress, and even how to ask for help. This is the kind of deep, comprehensive practice that moves you from B1 to B2 and beyond. It is not about memorizing lists. It is about tuning your ear to the music and the mechanics of English. I hope you feel more confident now. I hope you feel that you can handle a bit more speed, a bit more complexity. Remember, the goal is not perfection. The goal is communication. If you understand the main idea, you are winning. If you can guess a word from context, you are winning. If you ask someone to repeat a sentence, you are winning. Every interaction is a step forward. I am so proud of the time you invested today. You are building a skill that will open doors for you, allow you to make new friends, watch amazing movies, and travel the world with confidence. English is a bridge, and you are building it plank by plank with every minute of listening practice. Thank you so much for joining me, Jessica, on English in Advance. It has been an absolute pleasure to guide you through this training. Keep practicing, keep listening, and remember you are capable of amazing things. I look forward to seeing you in our next session, where we will tackle new challenges and continue our journey. Until then, take care, stay curious, and keep your ears open. Goodbye for now.